For rehearsal, I just sculpted straight from a sphere, but I think today I'll try and be a little more refined and use the skin modifier. I think that'll be a more fun, entertaining way to go about this. So I'm going to tab into edit mode and Alt-M. I'm going to merge to the center all my vertices because I want one vertex. You can see that there. And in edit mode, I typically hide the tool shelf. And modifier, add the skin modifier. For those of you that maybe don't know what this is, the skin modifier essentially allows you to generate a tube of sorts around just connected vertices, around edges, and that will become very handy for building out a base mesh for our wolf sculpture. And it can be used for a lot of different things. I'm just going to start very simply, maybe add a subdivision surface modifier on top of it, go to wireframe. And it's not just a tube of the same diameter. You can adjust it. If I select any of the verts, Control A, in edit mode, you can see that I'm scaling up the diameter. So let's see how this actually builds into a wolf. Oh, nice. It's your favorite cookie too. Well, look at that. Man, they're so good. Now I'm distracted. I want a cookie. It was on your astrology chart? Good heavens. Oh, concrescence. I think you don't need the spaces in between the brackets, just the Q. But FYI. How do you resize the skin modifier blocks? Select a vertex in edit mode and Control A. All right, so I'm going to start with kind of the backbone of our wolf. All right, so move this forward. E to extrude. Let's do a couple. Let's go straight up. So this is going to be the howling head. Control A. Let's kind of bulk up the body. And then up top, maybe I can split it off at this point. Let's do one for the upper snout, one for the lower snout, and then Control A to make those small. All right, so it's going to represent kind of the mouth of the wolf, and then I'm going to E to extrude a little bit for a head. Now, now I don't really want this to look like another, what do you call it, like appendage. I want it to just be more of a like bulb. What am I trying to say? Just trying to add a shape, you know, like this kind of thing. I'm not trying to create another appendage specifically. So what you can do, what you can play with is select these two verts and say mark loose. All right, you can see that that kind of combines everything here into a mass. You know, it takes kind of the average of all of these. And I want that to be true for the top of the head, but I don't want it to be true for these down here. So maybe if I cut another vert in here, there we go. So I cut another vertex in between, and that kind of gave me what I wanted. Let's make sure it looks okay in 3D. Perhaps in addition to just Control A, you can also limit the scale to a certain direction. So if I hit Control A and then hit X, it should scale in just the X-axis. Control A, X, Y. Although maybe that doesn't work whenever you mark it loose. What if I mark this clear loose? So you can see now I'm kind of, well, another thing about the skin modifier is it's a little funky, right? So it, like right there, it's not doing what I expected. Even though I cleared the loose, Control A, X. Yeah, it's just not doing what I expected. Whereas up here, Control A and X, you can see that it's scaling only in the width. It's not scaling only in the X-axis, not in the Y-axis. So I was expecting it to do that there, but it did not. That's okay. The skin modifier is never going to be perfect. You're just creating a base mesh, so it's best if I don't get held up on the things that don't work perfect. You know, in the head case, that I need it to be wider, but I can just do that in the sculpt. I don't need to do that in the skin modifier. So whatever, you're not doing exactly what I want, that's fine. It doesn't have to hamper my workflow. Control A for this guy, and let's scale it in X. All right, from here, if I go to the front, I can extrude out for a shoulder. Scale that down with Control A, E. Let's just go straight down in Z. And then just get it close to the ground. Control A to scale that down. All right, so I need the other half for free, which I can do with the mirror modifier. Let's add that and place it above the skin modifier. There we go. Now I just have to worry about the one side. Trying to figure out a width for our legs. And let's see. I wonder if I hit Alt A. How do I what about Control Alt A? Trying to figure out how to clear the size. So if we look in the skin modifier, okay, it looks like equalize radius did that. So I just have this. In other words, I don't want it to be flat like this. I want it to be the same diameter, but it's inheriting that flatness from this vertex. So I want to select these two and try equalize vertex, or equalize radii. There we go. That's going to restore the tube nature. See if I'm missing anything. Any other questions? Question, would you be able to post the CG or the cookie recipe in the description for this live stream? That's funny. I mean, yeah, I guess I could. That would be kind of fun. Yeah, I suppose I could take a picture of it and post it. Wow, that is random. Nice. Yeah, if I don't do that, remind me, because I also forgot to put your XP points, to give you your XP points for last week's quiz. So sorry about that. I'll have to do that this week. But I am prone to forgetting. Tubular, dude. That's right. I'm restoring these guys to being tubular. That's exactly what I was trying to do. All right, so let's go with the back legs now. EX, extrude those out. EX down. Put those flat on the floor. And for some reason, well, I think I know the reason, we have this weird squared off part of the skin modifier. And the reason for that is, I think, for whatever reason, this vertex is called the root. All right, so the skin modifier depends on one of your verts being the root, and it basically should not be this one. So if I select this guy, mark the root, you can see that that fixes it. Honestly, I use mark root as a troubleshooting measure. So whenever my skin modifier is not working the way I expect it to, I'll start selecting verts and marking them as the roots. It's, in my opinion, it's kind of an arbitrary setting that sometimes fixes it, sometimes doesn't, but doesn't have an explicit benefit that I have discovered. Other than that, other than troubleshooting. Control A, I'm gonna kind of scale up this backside. Whoops. And then also, it's kind of weird back there. Let me extrude for the tail. See if I can, when I practiced this earlier today, it did give me some weird issues around this area. But yeah, this is a very fast way to build out a shape. That's what I'm really hoping you guys get out of this. Oh, there we go. That looks pretty good. Huh. Yeah, the skin modifier never behaves the same way twice, I swear. All right, so I can, but the benefit here is, as I zoomed out, you know, comparing my skin modifier to the image, I can see that the proportions are busted, and the head needs to be kind of bigger. So I can scale them all up. Actually, no, the head doesn't need to be bigger. It needs to be moved up like this. So the kind of neck needs to be elongated. Also, the back side kind of needs to be pushed down. Hope that doesn't break anything. Ah, it did. Oh, no, it didn't. All right. Think about there. Did that even go down at all? Just barely. So maybe if the proportions, I don't know, his head looks really long. Maybe I can cut an edge in here in the middle and kind of grow that out a bit. But by the way, I'm cutting new edges, new vertices with Control R. Since they're like connected edges, it just adds a vertex wherever you point it. Oh, well, I didn't mean to do that, but let's go ahead and save. So I need to create a new folder, call it live. Wolf sculpt 01. Control A. There we go. Now I've got a little bit better proportion, I feel like, but the legs perhaps are too short, too stubby. All right, I think what's going to help a lot is to put the dog leg in the back legs. So I'm going to move this vertex forward, Control R, move this one back. Actually, yeah, that's more like it. And in this case, I can Control A, but I don't want them to be so thick in the width. So Control A and then X, scale those, actually Y. There we go, scale those to be a little bit skinnier. Wow, that's kind of weird. Wait, what? Control A, Y. Yeah, they're kind of oriented funky, but that should be okay. And then extrude forward for the paw. All right, that should be good enough for the dog leg. And yeah, one note about the skin modifier is you can see as I'm scaling up, it's dynamically generating the topology, and sometimes you can get really funky stuff. So you want to avoid situations like this. If we look in wireframe or in solid view, you know, it might look fine from the outside, but as we go inside, it's penetrating fairly badly. So I want to avoid that kind of thing. Whereas like when I scale it down, there's still a little bit of penetration. But like, you know, you want to strike a balance to where you're not getting totally busted geometry at the end of all this. So it's not perfect, but like our proportions are there. It's starting to look a little bit like a wolf. And then once I start sculpting, it's going to be, it's just going to get me off to a much better foot. I know, actually, coincidentally talking about the paw. There we go. All right, so am I far enough along to begin sculpting? I think so. I'm definitely really close. Am I missing any questions? From Laszlo, what is your way of pressing Shift Control together? Example, Shift Control Z, lay down your pinky on both, or do you use two fingers all for the quiz? Let's see. Oh, so Shift Control. I do my pinky on Control and ring finger on Shift of my left hand. So these two fingers. Huh, I've never really thought that through. Yeah, so my my home finger position, right hand on the mouse, obviously, and then Control on my pinky, and on my left hand pinky, Shift on my left hand ring finger. Yeah, never really noticed that. That gives me thumb access to the space bar, middle finger access to like A, for example, S. So Control A is left pinky and left middle finger. Huh, that's interesting. Question from Jan Willem. If you are going to sculpt this with dynamic topology, why do you care about topology at this point? Okay, so that's a great question actually. I only care about topology because if it's too intersected, I mean, let's see if I can create a really bad example. So here's a great example of bad topology. Like the skin modifier has created like a hole in the mesh. And this would be really difficult to start sculpting because dynamic topology is going to try and maintain that but it's just bad topology. Like it's inverted, it's wrong. And so dynamic topology is not going to correct that the right way. It's going to auto-generate topology, but it's going to be on the inside of this situation, not on the outside, whereas it should generate fine over top of this. So I hope that makes sense of why I'm doing that. All right, so with the leg, I do think I want to rotate it out slightly. So if we look in wireframe, I'm gonna use my active element, which is this vertex up here. Oh wait, I need that one as well. There we go, just trying to angle it out slightly. I think that looks a little more natural. Okay, cool. I think that's enough with the skin modifier. It's gonna get us close. Any other questions I'm missing real quick? I don't think so. All right, cool. Let me see. Yeah, save my file. I saw someone putting that in chat. Thank you thanks for looking out for me. And from this stage, we can apply object mode, the object menu, convert to mesh. All right, that's going to generate our topology. Maybe add a subsurf modifier just to smooth it out a little bit more. This also helps to kind of point out any problem areas, like anything that's intersecting too bad, which it doesn't look like. We have a little bit there, but that's not going to be too bad. Let's apply that at level 1. And now I think we can begin sculpting. Jump into sculpt mode. I like to sculpt with matte cap on. There's just not enough contrast for me with the default studio lighting. I don't know if any of you guys would agree, but it's not contrasted enough. The first matte cap material, there's more contrast, so I like to start there. All right, put my mouse down over here, grab my pen, and we will start sculpting. Excellent, Wilco. The skin modifier looks really cool. It is very cool. It has a lot of potential. When it doesn't freak out on you, it's a great tool, but it can freak out. Just be wary of that. Question: do you tend to leave a copy before collapsing the mesh in case you mess up? I like to do that. I do, and I haven't done that in this case. I think. Let's see. I can't remember if I saved it before. Does anyone remember if I saved the? I actually should probably do that just to be safe. I'm going to step back. Subdivision, and get the skin modifier, Control S, then save a version 2, and then step through that again. Maybe just add another subsurf modifier. Well, increase this up to level 2. There we go. Actually, that's not what I want. We get a different result from, if I leave the subsurf at 1, and then apply all of this, object, convert, mesh, and then add a subsurf modifier, it looks a little different. Isn't that interesting? All right, apply that. All right, and now I can save it as version 2 for the sake of what Omar brought up, maintaining a somewhat non-destructive workflow. If I need to step back to the skin modifier, I can with that version 1. That is a smart approach. What tablet do you use? I use the Intuos. See if I can get that in camera. This one should be. You should recognize it, or the blue tag. It's a. Oh wait, it says right here. Intuos Pen and Touch Medium, model CTH 680. So it's like it's a mid-level Wacom tablet. It's not massive, nor was it terribly expensive. I got it refurbished for like a really good price. I want to say less than $100. But yeah, it's been great for me. All right, let's jump into sculpt mode. And dynamic topology, definitely enable that. Detail size, I like to go down to 10 at my starting point. Symmetry, I do want mirror on anything in here. I want a unified size and strength. I don't like different strengths whenever I switch brushes, so that's why I keep that on. In sculpt mode, I do like to use the toolbar. So I'm going to hit the T key so we bring that back. Maybe get rid of the timeline at the bottom just to gain a little bit more real estate. Save my file. Now I think I'm all set up to begin sculpting. And yeah. So where to dive in first? Well, the problem areas, I suppose, is where I'm immediately drawn to. And I'm going to start with these clay strips. I find that to be a nice kind of gestural place to start. I want to be free form. I don't want to be, yeah, I guess free when I start sculpting at this stage early on. So I'm going to ensure that my dynamic topology is set to subdivide collapse. I like clay strips so I can quickly just build up volume and then break it back down. And yeah, so that's how I'm going to start. And this problem area right here, which is kind of the rib cage, we've got this odd jut out. So I'm going to start carving that backward because the rib cage on the animal is definitely more rounded. It's not bulky like that. And start building out more mass in general around where the leg connects to the body. So it's kind of like a small bulb up at the top of that shape. I'm carving away some volume here to build out that shoulder, and then I'll go back in and build out the volume of the neck. Someone's here. Miranda, you're here for the ice shader. Excellent. I hope I don't disappoint. I'm like 80% satisfied with the ice shader, and today I'd love to be 100% with the second round, but we will see if I do that. I'm still getting used to transparency and refraction in Eevee, I think is my hang up. But we will find out how. I think it'll go well. I think it'll go well enough. All right, so I'm building out the fur here. It's just a little bit too thin. Keeping an eye on my reference. All right, we have a nice smooth curvature around the neck up into the jaw. Oh, I did find a really good reference now that I'm on the face that right here, this guy. I love this reference because he breaks down this wolf structure at a almost primitive level, so you can really get an idea of what the wolf's face is like. So from Ted Lockwood, awesome. This is a great reference for me in this project. And it's got a nice style to it as well. So I'm going to reference this, kind of keep in mind like how to form that anatomy. So I'm just going to take a mental snapshot of this. Looks like one of the main things I need to do is build out, well, definitely some width. Let's just try and make the whole thing a little bit wider. Good grief, yeah, it was way too thin. Keeping an eye on the reference and the fact that the upper part of the snout like has this very noticeable taper, triangular shape, whereas the bottom one's a lot more thin. All right, already made a big step towards a better snout. A question in the chat, a couple of them. Let me see if I missed any before this. Let's see. Okay, from Matthew Ulray, do you use the hotkeys for different brushes or just the toolbar? You know, I've started using, I think I use I for inflate. I think I use Shift-C for the crease brush. But yeah, the toolbar is pretty nice. I usually go back to the clay strips. I'm kind of 50-50 maybe, now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more. I do think I use them both. But yeah, with 2.8, like the de-emphasis on hotkeys has has made me kind of go that route. And I don't really love that it's made me do that, but try not to be an old dog that can't learn new tricks. Okay, I think I did just use the M hotkey for the mask tool. So M, and then I will invert that mask and then drag out some ear shapes, which based on the reference, it looks like it's pointed straight down. Is this a wolf or a coyote? That might be a coyote. Just need to make a mental note of that because it does look slightly different. Not that it's not that different, so I'll still use it for reference, but I don't want it to end up looking like a coyote. All right, so drag out some ear shapes. And something about the neck, is it too long? Maybe that's part of it, is like I'm going with a coyote neck and not a wolf neck. So let's turn off dynamic topology for a moment and just re-proportion the head. Bring it back down. I turned off dynamic topology so that, I guess I didn't need to actually. Let's see. Because the grab brush should not adjust the topology, but it did. Oh, I'm using snake hook. Yeah, okay, so I didn't need to turn that off. But I'm going to try and reproportion the head to be a little bit more wolf-like, less coyote. From the side, it's really off. In general, like there's a lot of fur around the neck or mane. I'm not sure exactly what you'd call this area. You guys know, you probably know I don't put a lot of time into memorizing anatomy terms, not even for humans, so definitely not for wolves. But whatever the neck of the wolf is, there's a lot of fur. And I'm going to try and emphasize that actually in the sculpture, maybe exaggerate how much fur is there, in other words. So we're loosely getting better with our proportions and anatomy. Maybe sculpt a little bit of an ocular cavity in here. And there's not going to be an eyeball. We are going to, I've got my crease brush here real quick. I'm going to, for some reason, yeah, I actually don't know the reason. For some reason, the crease brush is set to negative by default. I like it to match my other brushes and switch it back to positive. And therefore, that way control is how you push in again. Maybe carve out a little bit of the mouth while I'm thinking about it. There we go. Perhaps the snout's a little bit too long. Also, I've lost that triangular shape at the top. All right, I don't want to spend too much time in one spot. I want to get it looking competent and recognizable, but I don't want to polish off the head and not address the rest of the body. So I'm going to say that head is a decent progress, maybe 30%, 40% of the way there. And I'm going to get the rest of the body up to 40%. Oh yeah, I have some questions here from Irinel. So technically, is this going to be a stylized ice wolf? Yes, it will be technically stylized. Like, I mean, by nature, like you can't sculpt really realistic fur, try and take millions of hair follicles and sculpt it as if it is one solid mesh. It by nature has to be stylized at that point. And I am going with that in mind. So when I say stylized fur, something like this isn't a bad look, like approach fur that way. Perhaps there's really like not fur at all, no fur definition in this example. Here's a good example of a lot of fur detail. I'm not going to go quite that detailed, but Something more in this, sort of in this realm. A little bit more jagged than this, but this kind of has like a curliness to the fur. I'm not going to quite go there, but I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go as well. Right now, I'm just trying to proportion things out, get the shapes recognizable. I'm going to go to my inflate brush, which is the I hotkey, and try and get this shape a little bit better. So it's a definitive taper on this front leg. It gets gradually smaller and smaller. There's this slight little, it's like a thumb almost at the back. So let's put that in there, make sure we've got it anatomically correct, even if I can't correctly name the anatomy. But so on the note of anatomy, I know it's come up in the forums, and probably most of you are aware of that. So what I was trying to express is that the ability to name this part of the body, I think there's benefit there, but I don't need to know what this is called in order to form the shape. Like I can look at this, I can look at other, let's see, are there other examples of this side? Not explicitly, but I had a dog growing up, so like it's a lot of people do and kind of remember these shapes, but like you can find this stuff from reference if you haven't experienced it yourself, but like there is this kind of tendon going down the back side, and not knowing what that's called is fine. Like I can still achieve that. So therefore, the ability to translate reference images into form, I think is a better skill set to have rather than memorizing anatomy terminology. So like I've always put my effort into that, like how to translate light and shadow from photographs or from real life into form, into 3D form. That's always paid off more for me because it applies to anything. If I spend a lot of time memorizing anatomy, and there's so many terms, it's so stupid. Not stupid. I don't want to be, it's not stupid, but in my opinion, it's not a good use of time to memorize all those terms whenever I can just visually interpret it and not drive myself crazy. But anyway, I have a goal. I do want to learn more anatomy to be, I would say like, I think I'm a big enough adult to be able to memorize like another 20 terms or something like that for anatomy purposes and be able to express those in an anatomy workshop coming up or an anatomy course of some sort. But because I don't want to teach an anatomy course knowing absolutely no terms. Save police. Thank you. Control S. Save the sculpt. Yeah, we're slowly starting to get there. I need to pick it up. We're almost an hour in. Let's see. I want to form these paws a little bit more. From Coco, I think what seems to be missing from the head is the quote cheek-like fur that gets out of the cheekbones. Yes, absolutely. I'm going to emphasize that in the next phase of sculpting when we polish it off a bit more. But you're absolutely right. That definition is pretty iconic, not iconic, but like characteristic of a wolf for sure. All right, so the paws look a little bit better. So Jan Willem, be careful not to turn people away from learning anatomy. There is a reason it is being taught. You dismiss it to the point it has no value. I don't mean to do that. It definitely has value. It's kind of I would say it's an optional thing. So, when I was modeling a car, just to be able to like navigate Google, I had to start learning terminology to know what to search for. Like, what is a caliper? What is the brake line? Where does that run from where to where? The difference between a hubcap and a rim. Like, you end up having to learn the terminology to a degree, but I did not like make flashcards about this is what every part of the engine is called, And now I'm so knowledgeable about that, I can rattle off those names like it's nothing. Whereas I've seen anatomy courses that I think lean the other way. They rattle off their terminology like they know what they're doing, and they're so good at it, but it's not needed. And so people think, oh, I've got to learn anatomy. I've got to learn these terms, but it's an optional thing. I'm pretty firm on it being an optional thing. And when I say anatomy, the terminology itself, the, I say ocular region, like ocular cavity, like that's the place where your eye sits. That's a big one to me. You know, the nasal labial fold, which is this little thing right here, that line in your cheek. Like, those are big terms, and yeah, I know those, but I only know a handful of them, but I'm able to sculpt humans. So I think learning the terminology itself, I'm high up on my soapbox at this point. I apologize if it's not valueless, all right? I definitely don't believe that it's as valuable as me learning parts of the engine when I was modeling a car. Now I'm done with the car, I've moved on to something else, and I couldn't tell you what those car parts are. Just my brain has moved on to other stuff, and that's okay, because I'll relearn those as I need them, but I do not need to memorize all these things. All right, last thing I'll say, because if you spend so much time on that stuff, you're gonna have to specialize in just humans. Like, I can't memorize every animal that I ever want to create and all their anatomy. I can't memorize human, I can't memorize car parts, I can't memorize mechanical bits of devices and cell phones, like anything I ever want to model. I can't memorize everything about it. I've gone on for way too long about that. But it's not valueless. It's really, really not. I think I get annoyed with people who make it seem required or overly important. Because it kind of limits people, I think. And I don't think that's necessary. Because it has people saying, I can't sculpt anatomy until I learn all the terms, and it's not true. Anyway. Well, it's differing opinions keeps life interesting. So ultimately, you got to make your own choice. I posted somewhere, I think Pavel, we were talking on the forums, all I can do as a teacher is show you the door, show you how to use tools, hopefully open your mind to how you can create things, and you're the one that decides where to go from there. What's best for me to learn. If you need to memorize anatomy and that's how you learn, do it. Absolutely do it. But it is my job to, I think, be most inclusive with how I teach. And I think memorizing anatomy terms is memorizing any singular thing is just not a good use of time. Anyway. Yeah, okay, Jerry, you're absolutely right. Maybe me getting on my soapbox could be my misunderstanding of what people mean by anatomy. Maybe I am an anatomy expert. Expert is a big, I don't want to say that. Maybe I am competent, more than competent with my anatomy, because I can sculpt them. I can't name the names, but just because I'm aware of where the muscles are, how to form them, does that mean I'm good at anatomy? If so, awesome. But I can't name very many things. So maybe it's my problem for thinking that is the requirement for, quote, knowing anatomy. Good grief. Yeah, I got to get back to the wolf. I think I missed a bunch of questions. Mona, thank you. That's a much better way to put it. Developing your eye as an artist. That should be your big goal. Definitely. I mean, never mind. All right. I've got to get this wolf finished up. We could just about face and definitely learn anatomy. I want everybody spending 40 hours over the next month to memorize all the anatomy, and we will. Maybe I should do that, and it will turn me into a anatomy god. Then I'll have to completely take back my previous opinions. So moving down the, I guess, posterior of the wolf. So here's the opportunity to kind of fix the wonkiness from the skin modifier. You can see how it kind of tilted the knee a little bit in. So that's, I guess I think of terms like when I was in the sculpt modifier position, I'm like, okay, let's, I really want to fix that because it's driving me crazy. So now I can fix it. And it didn't need to be perfect in the skin modifier. Challenge accepted. Yeah, it's kind of like a, what do you call it, a knock-kneed wolf right now? Looks like the wolf has to pee really bad. All right, this is maybe a better example. In the front, I was talking about whatever, like the thumb equivalent on the paw, on the front paw. In the back, we don't have that, but we do have this like dog leg shape, and you can see that there's like a bone, a tubular bone creating the triangular point, and then there's like skin that's in between it. So to create that, I'm gonna go with my inflate brush. All right, so kind of push out the main structure in the middle and then come back to the sides. There we go. Thank you, John, for the reminder. Let me look back. There you go. Yeah, I am a big fan of showing off, so that will help me. Mikhail asked if the Rocky Ground material course is still on. That's right. Yeah. Gosh, it's on the to-do list for sure. I want to do that one as soon as I get finished with probably the Blender fundamentals. I'm afraid I don't have the time to do that in between now and then. Yukino, I couldn't have said it better myself. All right. But yeah, I've done enough on that rock shader, that rock procedural, that it's ready to be recorded. I'm pretty happy with that one. I need to find the time. One thing's for sure, at CG Cookie, we are never sitting around on our hands. We always have a lot going on. I wonder about that sometimes. Like, I wonder what we seem like on the outside. Like, you know, how you guys, or how we're judged based on like how much content is released. If we look like we're doing a lot of work, the amount of work we're actually doing behind the scenes. I wonder about that sometimes. Anyway, I don't want my mind to travel too much. I have got to finish this thing. It's already 3:05. Yeah, I've got to finish this thing. All right, so I'm going to try and speed this up, which might end up in a little bit of less commentary. But yeah, I'm really wanting to speed this up. I don't think I'd be too proud of only finishing the sculpt in 2 hours. But yeah, you've already seen a paw created. I think the best thing about the paw is when I take the crease brush around the bottom edge, it kind of flattens it out. And that usually is a big step towards believability. All right, the tail, pretty simple shape. That should be easy enough. I'm just gonna start getting into the gestural mode. One thing that's gonna help with the fur appearance is gesturally sculpting, like making a bunch of strokes that will end up looking a little bit like fur. Certainly get the fur aesthetic started. A little bit of the crease brush. That's not looking great. All right, with the backbone, I think it'll be nice to establish somewhat of a backbone shape. So with a subtle crease, I think I'll just push that right down the middle. Maybe a little too strong. All right, it looks a little bit like a sort of a skinny wolf, which is good. Now we can build those shapes up to represent fur, like a more fluffy animal. All right. So I think we've got the whole wolf down to like a 30% completion. Dogs have 4 toes. You are correct. Thank you, John. Thank you. I think I've created too many like Disney style creatures to just simplify the hands. Dang, now I've got to put more like work into these things. So yeah, oops. Maybe I need to dial down my detail size. We're back at 12. Why are we back at 12? I set that to 10, I thought. How about, let's go down to like 7. Try and get these toes a little more evened out. Maybe a claw will help. Maybe that's something's just not feeling right about him. I think there needs to be a definitive knuckle. You can see how they kind of are raised up there. Also, the crease seems to go back all the way into the where it connects to the rest of the leg. I definitely don't. I think I don't look like I know what I'm talking about when I can't talk about all the anatomy. That's for sure. And unfortunately, I think that's important when you're a teacher, to instill confidence in your students. All right, that's looking better. Thank you, John, for the assist there. A much needed improvement on the pause. Should make a round shape up front. Yeah, you're right. The two middle toes need to come out. You are correct, Mikhail. It's a team effort in here. I love it. Now, I told you I like to reuse stuff. And I think I do. Well, I know I do. So I want to reuse this paw because I like it. I spent enough time on it. Now I want to reuse it. I'm going to tab into edit mode. Since we don't have too much geometry yet, I should be able to like lop this off, duplicate it backwards. Let's hide it for now. Yeah, I think I should be able to do this fairly quickly. Alt-H, bring that good paw back. All right. So now that I've got those lined up, I can, and since topology doesn't really matter, I should be able to just, like, what I'm going to do is connect a few spots. And then I should be able to fill what's in between. Nice. Yeah, okay, so that should be the workflow. Yeah, and this should allow me to connect up, and then dynamic topology will take care of the rest in terms of the topology. All right, so we've got those connected. Nice. Oops. I'm going to save this. All right, and then jump into sculpt mode. And then lightly touch it. I usually do the inflate modifier or the inflate brush for some reason. Enable dynamic topology and then paint over that area. Just barely touch it. Nice. All right. There we go. We've saved ourselves having to do that again. Having to sculpt that from scratch. All right. Nice. Don't fear the end god. Yeah, definitely not with dynamic topology. Am I missing any questions? Mickey Mouse was giving him 3 fingers to make him less human. Interesting. I don't think I knew that. Question below. Did you figure out your brushes differently? Let's see. Did you configure your brushes differently, or are they as a fresh installation? Yeah, I haven't configured my brushes at all. It's the default. Only thing I did do, which I did earlier in this stream, was change the crease brush from negative default to a positive default. Like all of these other brushes are positive default, and it bothers me that flatten actually seems to be a negative. I never realized that. Though I don't really know what positive flatten looks like. Anyway, most of them are well, there's pinch negative. All right, well, for some reason, I always change crease to be a positive. That's the only custom thing. Statement, CD Cookie went from the outside. I pictured it like a Willy Wonka cookie factory, Wes with a hat inviting everyone to come in. I think he would love that description. I think he really would. Wow, yeah. I asked a bit earlier, but it seems to be drowned out. Do you still use ZBrush for your work, or you completely switched to Blender for sculpting? That's from Pavel. I have not used ZBrush to sculpt since probably 8 years ago is the last time I used ZBrush to sculpt. Yeah, the only reason I would use ZBrush now, I think, is if for some reason I needed a super dense mesh. That's the only reason I've ever needed to. I've sculpted high-res characters plenty with Blender, and I never needed ZBrush. So yeah, it's preference though. Like if you find their tools better or more intuitive, and you obviously own a license, then yeah, I completely affirm doing that. Blender, I think, is just a very competent sculpting system, and I personally have not needed to any of those other tools. I also think I feel, for one, I like to be able to use Blender for everything. I just think that's a remarkable quality of the open source software, this one specifically. Also, it's nice on the personal financial budget. But as a teacher, I want to be able to create everything in Blender and not really lean on other software. So all those reasons go into why I sculpt with Blender and not ever ZBrush. I do own a ZBrush license. I just don't ever use it. Does ZBrush still have like a one-time fee for buying ZBrush and using, like, buying a license basically? When I bought it, it was like $600 or $700, and you were guaranteed like lifetime updates. All right, so with the Howling part, what do you think of the new Simplify brush? Honestly, I've never used it. Simplify. What's the tooltip? Select the tool. Okay, there is no tooltip. I assume that the Simplify kind of keeps your same shape. Let's see if I can make it work. So if I zoom really far in, make sure that I'm using a 7-pixel dynamic topology. All right, so we've got a lot of geometry there. I assume that Simplify would keep the shape and just update it. That's pretty cool. Yeah, no, that solves a lot of problems, I think, for sculpting. Nice. I give it a thumbs up. I've not used it. I guess I've just not been used to it. It's not been there in 2.79. So, all right, I need to work on the head. Gosh, this sculpt has taken forever. I did not expect that. All right, let's see if I can fast track the formation of the fur, because I would like to do a little bit of shading. I know at least Miranda was expecting that. Oh, it's a $900 perpetual license. Okay, so it has gone up. It's I remember it incorporated Sculptress. That's pretty cool. Maybe it's a good time to place sharp teeth. I actually don't think I need sharp teeth. So what I'm going for is this. Okay, yeah, there are some teeth actually. So I think that this looks more like a Howling pose rather than this one. This one just, I don't know, it doesn't read as Howling, more like barking or something. So I'm going to go with this one. And it does appear that there are teeth. I thought that they were covered up by the lips. All right, so let's make the mouth look a little bit more like this. There's also some anatomy like we can start sculpting in, representative of, someone mentioned it earlier, but like the quote unquote cheek fur, that is going to help. I'm going to create that initially with a shelf like this. So starting to create the fur with these broad strokes. And that should start to build up kind of a layered effect of big, thick fur. I need to carry it around to the front as well. So now I'm doing that thing I talked about earlier, where taking the clay strips and, you know, as you just stroke a bunch on the front, you'll start to get a fur-like pattern that you can then emphasize and polish to look more like fur. But you don't want it to be a repeating pattern of like that looked like a weave there for a second, like a basket weave. I might have to turn off symmetry there too, but slowly as we build up this volume, we'll start to get more of a fur-like appearance. All right, now to address the mouth that I was talking about. Definitely gonna shrink the mouth. Let's do that with a snake hook brush so it auto-generates the new topology. I need to build up significantly around the bottom, like the bottom lip. And then once I do this, yeah, it's a good idea to add some teeth in there. There we go. Use my inflate brush to build up the upper lip. Nice. I think that reads a lot better. The front of the nose has this really great, typically like a really sharp feature. I really like that point. It's like distinguished wolf in my opinion. Okay, I think we're getting there. Ears are way too small. I think what might be a good idea at this point is actually to mask off the ears. That way I don't have to, because they're folded way back and they're kind of touching, they're going to be touching the rest of the mesh, and I don't want to have to fight those two surfaces. So using snake hook, let's increase their size and kind of volume in general. That shape got away from me. That was nowhere close. There we go. I think that looks a little bit better. All right. Okay. I'm going to spend maybe another 5 minutes trying to sculpt. I'm going to have to call it a day on the sculpt, and just so we can play with the shader a little bit. And what I want to do is basically put fur in key places. So at the bottom, there's a lot of fur that like grows a little bit longer. It creates an interesting shape. I want to create that. Just using my crease brush to build up a little bit of that fur structure. Am I missing any questions? Hold on. Question. Posing your characters in Blender can only be done after you rig them, or is there a faster way? No, you can actually. So originally I intended to teach this, but I've run out of time a little bit. But you know, I sculpt this wolf in a neutral pose, but you can absolutely, like, I was going to show you how to create a blend shape, or sorry, a shape key that could house, like, turning the wolf asymmetrical, like turning his pose to be asymmetrical. I was going to offset his legs and do that with a shape key and just edit mode, like proportional editing to push the legs back and rotate them forward. So I pose my characters usually without rigging, but to, like, rigging is a more involved posing process, and certainly it'll get you closer to animation if that's what you want. Yeah, I'm gonna have to just willy-nilly this fur, I think. Make sure I'm not missing any questions. Oh yeah, the sharp teeth. I do remember I have to do that. Wilco, how do you select geometry that is already penetrating other geometry? How do you select geometry that's already penetrating other geometry? So in sculpt mode, I guess I don't really select it that much. Oh, maybe you mean mask off geometry that's already penetrating. So if this what I think you're talking about is, like, let's take this for example, and then crash it through the rest of the sculpture. Like in this situation, if I had this situation, how do I correct it? Like, select this part. I don't think you can. I don't know of a way to do that in sculpt mode. Like, if you've got really penetrating geometry, like overly penetrative, then I would just kind of start from scratch. I would try and, sculpt it flat and then re-pull that ear out, because you're really going to battle with the geometry if you have penetrating stuff. What I will do if I like with clothing, for example, like, it's easier to sculpt that as a separate object and place it really close to the body mesh than it is to try and sculpt them together in most situations, because there's so much penetrating potential. Okay, so that is what you're talking about. I hope that made sense. You're pretty limited if you in sculpt mode, if you're trying to. Yeah, I guess you just have to be smart about it. Either separate into a separate object if you know penetration is going to be possible. Like, for example, if I wanted the ears to be their own object, I could totally do that and then hide it by sculpting fur around the object. That's an approach that I would take, possibly. But in this case, I'm trying to keep it far enough away from the penetration that it won't be a problem. Don't forget to save. Thank you, Mikal. I appreciate that. All right, I said 5 minutes. I got 1 more minute. So, fast track some of this fur. I did not go as fast as I thought I would. I apologize for that. I hope there's been some tips learned about sculpting a wolf like this, sculpting in general. I also have, if you haven't seen the Wrangler sculpting course, where we sculpt that character from the Eat Sheep universe, I go over sculpting his beard, and it's this same kind of thing, same kind of approach. I really should have turned off symmetry, because that's messing me up. So let's turn off symmetry and get some unique patterns. That's going to help it. Kind of screwed the pooch on the fur. Not the greatest. What I'll save it and then take a look at what the original sculpture was, just so you can see the difference. Where do you see the amount of faces in 2.8? So at the very bottom down here, you can see the scene has 413. I was wrong. Someone asked what the poly count on the wolf was. 413, not 430. But you can see down here triangles and faces that count. Can you see that in the stream? Yeah, you should be able to see that. But yeah, this is the original sculpture with the fur kind of more polished, more established. So, I mean, I guess I could just start from this. It's obviously a completely more polished sculpt. Yeah, I'll just start with this one. Why not? Or part of me wants to be consistent. Let's just go with this, whatever. All right. Gonna get rid of the camera and the light, and let's try and create our little skinny wolf. Now that I'm zooming out, it's definitely a little on the skinny side. Anywho, I think I missed any other questions from Peter? So maybe it is possible for you to make a quick tip video about posing sculptures with shape keys. Yeah, I mean, I could do that right now. So what I would do in this situation, you saw in the other sculpture that I just opened that the legs were offset, because symmetry is never really that ideal whenever you're showing something for a presentation. It's great for as a utility, but in this case, I would definitely want to offset the legs at the very least. So let's go to our shape key. I should be able to do this in just a couple minutes. And then Miranda, we will be in the node editor creating a shader. So I'm going to create a shape key. Always the first one is going to be basis. So create that one and then create another one. And that's the one we're actually going to change. I'm going to switch the value to be 1 and tab into edit mode. Wait. Yeah, tab into edit mode. And let's offset these. So I am going to go to wireframe and just start growing the selection. I can do better than that. All right. All right. All I'm doing here is trying to select the general mass of the leg. Oh yeah, I right-clicked to add the cursor right here, but I'll just click that cursor option. That's definitely taking me some getting used to. And then click right about here. Why is it not on the surface? I'm used to the cursor just, you know, like sticking onto the surface. Is that a setting somewhere? I forgot already. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to kind of place it where the joint of the leg should be. And 3D cursor. So from here, we can start rotating, obviously. But if we enable Alt-O right here, enable proportional editing, I'm going to do connected editing. And now when we rotate, we get a nice smooth fall off, which is like rigging, basically. All right, so am I going to rotate it? If I rotate it, then I would go joint by joint. But in this case, I might just try and push it forward. Because I think that will look real enough. And this is just for demonstration purpose. All right, so I pretty much maintained. You can also sculpt. As long as you don't use dynamic topology, you can sculpt. Turn off dynamic topology. And yeah, we can sculpt on our shape key, which is really nice, really handy. So I can do the bulk of the movement in edit mode, but then come back into sculpt mode. You can see how that's working. Then go to the other leg, make sure that my value is still at 1. And then from here, let's move that back. Let's actually switch the fall off to be a sharp fall off. There we go. All right, something like that. All right, so that offset, I mean, it's not ideal. Now the whole backside is kind of elongated. Anyway, something like this. And now we've got that built into a shape key. So we have not destroyed our mesh, but we can go back and forth between them. So that's a small example of how I will often pose my characters, especially when they're like stuck in sculpture mode, and I'm not going to retopologize them. All right, so that took a few minutes. All right, so yeah, from there, let's finally get shading. Save this file and then iterate up. Make sure I'm not missing any questions. Irinel, so technically if you have a super high dense mesh, you can apply a decimate modifier and then make the shape key? Definitely. Apply the decimate beforehand, and it should make, yeah, that's how you would do it. I'm trying to think of what would happen if I added a decimate modifier now. Let's try it. Let's go to 0.1. And then with the shape key thing, so it's still like, I guess the dynamic, when I have the modifier enabled, like stuck on the object, then the shape keys, it just dynamically updates with the shape key, like the topology updates, I think. Yeah, that's what it looks like. That's kind of cool. I didn't really know that. Shift plus right click to place a 3D cursor in 2D with left click select, shift and right click. Nice, thank you for that. I wonder how it determines like where in space it clicks. I feel like there used to be a setting like cursor on object or something like that. I don't know where that went, but thank you. Shift right click. That is what I want. Yeah, nice. Okay, so we're gonna switch the bottom. Now we don't really need the UV image editor for our reference. We're gonna go crazy. Not use really reference. Well, obviously it's gonna be an ice shader, but we can just switch this to the 3D view. All right, for me personally, whenever I make a small window like this, the focal length at 50, is that gonna be all right? I just don't like when I zoom way in how like kind of distorted it gets. I usually like to make this 100. And I'm not exactly sure why, but like really small viewports tend to make me do that more than a big viewport. Like I'm fine with this as a big viewport at 50 millimeters, but not down here. If anybody knows why that is, I'd be curious, interested. All right, turn off overlays. We don't need that. This is going to be our render viewport. And let's see, to set it up, we need a world. I'm going to use an environment texture. Pavel, I think you forgot to symmetrize the back paws. Yeah, Pavel, you caught me looking at that. I noticed right away when I forgot to do that. That's funny. Got the same mind. Oh, start from the finished sculpt. Okay, maybe we could do that. Or well, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure that the finished sculpt brings too much to the table other than being a little prettier to look at. I don't think it really affects the material itself too much. It's also a little more dense than this one, so I think it should be a little more efficient for the stream to use this guy. All right, let's open up, start with an HDRI environment. Let's use HDRI CC0, preferences, editing 3D cursor. Preferences, editing 3D. Oh, cursor project on the surface. Thank you. Thank you, Coco. Thank you. I needed that. HDRI Haven. And let's see, I can't remember which one I was using. I want to say this guy maybe. Let's go with Sunny Vondel Park and see what... Oh, well, maybe we don't need that right now. I forgot because the Workbench engine has HDRIs built in. All right, so we've got lighting. Now we can start to address the shader. Let's think about the shader. Let's do the same kind of thing. ArtStation is a great resource. If I type ice material, we should get several really nice substance, no doubt, generated materials. All right, so the ones that draw my attention, this one looks pretty cool. The glacier underside looks cool. I like this one. These are pretty neat. But there's a variety of stylized ice materials that we can, source inspiration and reference from. So as I go down, like this one, that's pretty cool. Ooh, I like that one. Beautiful. All right, but let's look at them. Look at that. That looks really cool. It's got this nice glowing ball in the center, which is fun. I don't know if I want to go that stylized. But we can start to take away some characteristics from these shaders. That one of them, there seems to be these like fault lines, so to speak, where there's cracks in the material. I saw one example right here. So you can see the cracks actually go down into the ice, or visually they seem to do that. And that is really cool. I have not figured out how to do that with Eevee. I'm not sure how to project the detail into the middle of the material, because I would try to do that with cycles and the absorption node, but absorption doesn't work with Eevee, the fake absorption node. But anyway, I'm keeping that in mind. The fault lines, they're kind of bright. Some of these materials like highlight them, especially. Like this one, like these bright fault lines, it's almost like they're an emissive material, like they're glowing. Question, what is the focal length setting? What is that focal length setting doing? I don't see a difference. All right, so the focal length here, it used to be the default was 35 back in 2.79. And when you zoom into the wolf, it's kind of like taking a picture with your cell phone. If you ever do that on someone's like upper half, they look disproportionate. Like their upper half is bigger than their lower half. They got little stubby legs. And the reason is the extreme focal length on cameras, on phone cameras. And that's the same kind of feeling I get here, right? It looks like the wolf's back legs are tiny. Like it's so distorted. So 50 is a step up, in my opinion, for the main viewport. Like I would typically step up to 50 or 60. But then whenever you make a really small window like this, 50 to me is still too extreme. All right, so now if I position the wolf in the same like bounds of the viewport, like it looks a little more proportionate. And then even more so proportionate whenever I change focal length to 100. This is also subjective. This is my opinion. But now the wolf looks much more subjective, much more, just lost the word, much more proportionate. That's what the focal length is doing for me. And all right, so yeah, these fault lines, I want to try and establish that, but I somehow need to create this illusion of depth in the ice material while also being free to stylize it as I wish. Ice isn't typically like really blue, a deep blue like this, but we have the right to do that if we want. The glowing lines, I might literally set that up as an emissive material just to achieve that. And Omar, looks like you're taking off. Hope your eyes get better. I'm sorry, man. That's rough. Glowing ball inside, please. Yeah, we could try that. Yeah, we can throw that in there. I like it. I like it stylized too. It makes for a fun exercise. So I think we'll start there. I'm gonna enable refraction. I'm going to get some transparency and then look at the fault line. Also try and, let's see, I have like 15 minutes. I want to try and recreate an absorption appearance, even though it won't be precisely absorption. And I have an idea for how to do that. But this is probably my favorite material from Daniel Tiger. Daniel Tiger? My kid watches that show. All right, so we'll keep that in mind, trying to achieve something like this. But another thing that I'm taking away from this is I think I can maybe fake the illusion of depth by having, you have this bright fault line on top where it's the most white, but then below it you have other patterns that are a little more blurred, a little more subtle. And I think overlapping those different patterns gives the illusion of, like right here, you can see a little fault line running here, but it's much more subtle. So I think it gives the illusion of depth. So anyway, we'll now that our mindset's there, The inner glow should be accomplished with a Fresnel overlay if he doesn't. Yeah, I think I might actually just like put a ball in there, like a lamp object. I might try that. Getting a nice sun beam on me. All right, let's actually get to work. So I'm going to switch to the shader node editor. Create a new material, or just enable use nodes. I'm going to call this ice. How about stylized ice? And where to start? I think let's just start with some transparency. So in the principled BSDF, let's turn on transmission all the way up to 1. All right, so transmission up to 1 doesn't really look like that too glassy. However, if we turn on screen space reflections and open that up, you get the option for refraction. We need to enable it there, but I think we also need to enable it in material settings. Yeah, right here. So in screen space refraction, let's enable that. That really doesn't do much. I think because we have nothing else in our scene. Is that why? Oh, the roughness is really high. Let's bring that down. Okay, maybe it was because the roughness was so high. Maybe we don't need screen space refraction. I thought I was using that earlier. But if we turn that off, yeah, it really doesn't do much. Like we see a little bit of the self refraction, but we don't really need that. Now, I think I'm going to smooth out the object. Object, shade smooth. Okay, cool. All right, seeing some questions in here. Well, one last question from me. I made a rig for my character and I posed him, but when I tried to render him in the pose, it didn't show up like the pose model, like the pose mode gave it. Any tips? So in pose mode, the character is in pose, but then when you render, it goes back to neutral. Is that what you're saying? A question asked a few minutes ago, you didn't answer. I'm sorry. It's longer text, so easy to find, from Laszlo. Oh, sorry. That was a duplicate as well. Laszlo. Where am I missing that? You're much more zoomed in the smaller viewport, so it's more distorted. Okay, maybe it doesn't feel zoomed in because like I feel like I'm looking at it the same here as here. But yeah, I guess that is kind of zoomed in now that I think about it. Huh, that helps. Where is your question, Laszlo? Laszlo, would you help me out and maybe paste that question again? If you can find it, copy and paste it. I would appreciate that. I do want to answer it. All right. Let's see what we can do here. I think for one thing we can agree on is that the ice is not going to be crystal clear. Like all of these stylized ice objects, it's not actually that transparent. I want a little bit of transparency, but it's going to be rough at the very least. So let's go back to the shader node. All right, roughness up actually might be what I want. All right, so I'm kind of thinking this in layers. All right, we've got the refraction, but also we have subsurface abilities. So let's look at what the subsurface looks like. I think I might duplicate this just to kind of separate them for the time being. And I want to look at subsurface scattering. All right, let's turn that up to 1. Maybe turn the subsurface color to blue. Also need to enable it in the viewport settings, subsurface scattering. Nice. So we've got kind of a skin tone in the actual subsurf color, and that's because the default subsurface radius is set to more of a skin tone, but we want it to be actually, I think, 1 all the way down. So now we get that subsurf, but there's no like underlying blood layer to change the color. So now we've got this kind of transparent look. I think we want maybe a combination of the two. If I was using cycles, I would use the absorption to make the center more subsurface scatter and then the outer edge be more transparent. But since I can't do that here, we can get away with a little bit of a trick. So I'm going to use texture, gradient texture. Let's look at that by itself. Let's add our mapping coordinates and let's use object instead. How about spherical? Where did that go? Radial? Nuts. What was I using? I forgot. I think it's that. Scale? Okay, here we go. All right, so I needed to, where did I need to push that down? There we go. What I'm trying to do, the gradient sphere is literally like a sphere in texture space. And so I can place that at the center of our object. And if I decrease the strength or the size now, let's go back down to 2. So we can use this as like a makeshift absorption to where the middle of our wolf will be mostly subsurface, but then where it's black, that will be where it's black will be transparent. All right, so let's increase the scale actually again, and then I can dial in my exact value using a converter color ramp. All right, so from here, let's use B-spline. I'm going to use, well, B-spline, is that working out? Maybe I won't. Let's do ease. Kind of like B-spline. It's got a nicer gradient. All right, so now we're going to mix the two. Shader, mix shader. And the white is going to be our subsurface here. That needs to be in slot 2, and then our transparent is going to be our black. All right, let's see what that looks like. I don't think I love that. I probably should have rehearsed this part again. I thought that's what I did. That does not look as good as what I thought. Maybe it's the HDRI. Let's switch the HDRI. Yeah, okay, that's a little bit better. So now we're kind of getting that blue effect on the center, whereas we're getting more clear on the outside edges. So yeah, it kind of gives this effect of a thickness. It's funny how much effect the HDRI had. Nice, I think that looks pretty good. Now let's try to add the fracture bits. Are we going to do that with let's see. For transparency, you need to set the blend mode in the material. But I don't. Do you? Maybe you're right. Let's see. In the material, I wanted to say that was just for like alpha blending, like a transparent alpha. Like if we go to alpha clip blend. Yeah, I don't think that's what I want. You know, like if for example, if you took a plane and you put a texture of a leaf on it and you wanted the outside of the leaf to be transparent, like completely alpha cut, then that's where you would use these blending modes. I think that's what that's for. But if I'm wrong about that, let's plug up the principled by itself. Yeah, I'm still getting those artifacts, which makes me think that's not what it's for. Alpha blend, alpha hashed. Yeah, I think that this is, I don't think that's what it's for. If anyone else can correct me, that'd be helpful. Oh, sorry. Oh, Laszlo, you meant Irenel's question. Thank you. I think I answered that one. Okay. Awesome. So where were we? So we've got this blue color. I think maybe we can add blue to the transparent as well. Yeah, I do like that. We're getting somewhere. Baby steps. Texture. Now what I'm going to try and add the fracture bit because I like the way that looks. Where is it? So yeah, it's kind of present in all these materials. You see this kind of blue line. This one looks a little bit more like veins, but still, you know, it reads as ice, I feel like. Definitely here. This is kind of the goal, but that's where I'm going to try and get to. Another thing is this one's much more deeper blue. So perhaps, let's see. We can go a little bit more that direction with the blue. I don't know. Let's just go with it. I gotta stop being a little less picky. Texture Voronoi. All right, so this, as you can guess, one of my favorites to use. That is going to be the way we get to that fractured appearance. All right, so the scale, let's go significantly down. Well, this scale actually determines how big we think this sculpture is. Like, is it as big as a person? Is it oversized, or is it small, like a, you know, like a little miniature, like a poodle or something? So determining the fracture size, I think, has a direct correlation to how big the overall sculpture feels. And let's see. Maybe, what does one look like? Oh, we can do a couple layers too. Like we can do one layer at 1. Let's try the other layer at 2. And we can kind of overlay them and get some interesting results. So from here, I'm going to add a converter. Let's see. Where is it? Vector. No. I'm confusing myself. Mapping. Vector curves. Wow. Could not think of it. Yes. So with this, I think we'll use the same vector curves for both. And from here, we can take a... Let's... how do I want to do this? Let's do a noise texture. Texture noise. You've seen me do this a lot, so it shouldn't be new. But we're just basically trying to break up the Voronoi pattern. Because if we look at the reference, where is it? This is my favorite. It's got a crackly kind of pattern to it. It's not straight completely. So we're trying to break that up right now. And if we use vector, let's look at this one. All right, that's going to be way too much. Wait a minute. I haven't actually adjusted the curve. So I didn't adjust the curve, so I didn't expect it to actually do anything yet. Okay, I think this is right. Okay, now I should be able to adjust things. Okay, there we go. All right, so it's not quite reading like cracks yet. I need to add a converter color ramp. Let's see. That is not really the pattern I was after. Let's see what we can do. What about the different... So we do have different types of Voronoi. I think maybe if we mess around with those, perhaps we'll get more interesting results. Not that one. Oh, wait, there's one called crackle. I wonder if that could be the magic. Yes, that's going to be the magic. Yes, that's what we need. That is what we need. All right. So this way, we're going to have much more fine-tuned cracks. I mean, honestly, we could probably... What if we mix the two? Uh-oh, I'm getting into... This is how I like to create shaders. I like to just build it like Legos. And then they get really complex really quickly. Cells for Voronoi is not a bad idea. What dog did you have as a kid? So we had a Pomeranian, a little tiny, you know, like Pomeranian, massive fur. Yeah, it was a family dog. It was a good dog. Just like a prince. He never had to do anything. He just sat around all day, and my mom combed him, and we played with him. When he would go outside, he would see other dogs and just sit there perplexed, like, what is that creature? I don't know if he knew he was a dog, if I'm honest. All right, let's go back to what was the default. I'm going to reset this node because I kind of like this pattern as like an accent. Okay, so let's flip the color ramp. Right, so this was the default, and if we kind of mix them, convert or color mix, RGB. Yeah, I mean, this. I wonder if this will help with what was it, 5? No, it was 10 actually. Yeah, so having the same scale values, it's kind of emphasizing the cracks, I wonder. Anyway, that's an option at least. So for this, wait, Shift D to duplicate. I need to set this one also to Manhattan and Crackle. Nice. All right, so these are going to be our fine-tuned cracks. Okay, so now we should be able to plug this up into, I think, an emission node, honestly. Shader emission, shader mix shader. See if we can get... I'm sorry about the workout. Yeah, I'm going over my time. I don't usually like to keep you more than 2 hours. What is the difference between the color and the factor output from textures? Isn't a black and white image anyway? So the Voronoi actually does have a color that with, like rainbow color, and the factor does change it to black and white. They have various uses. When you plug anything into a color ramp, it's going to come out black and white. Some have said that this is probably more efficient to just use the factor itself, so that the computer doesn't have to calculate any RGB info. I need to mix this real quick. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to finish this one, unfortunately. Yeah, I just took too much time sculpting. But, and I'm not really refining the crackle the way I want. I'm going to end up being disappointed with this one. Maybe I will make a shader forge lesson about yeah. I'm going to call it a day and kind of regroup for this. I just did not get as far as I wanted to in the time, but playing with this shader, I could really imagine it as a good shader forge lesson. So look for that in the future. I think there's a lot there. There's a lot of fun tricks you can do with the ice to kind of make it more believable. Right now, I'm just maybe 30-40% the way through. Just basically got the core concepts of, like the transparency versus the subsurface, like the fake, what do you call it? Absorption, that kind of thing. But it's going to take probably another 30 minutes to get it looking decent. So yeah, I hate to disappoint when I set a standard, but or I set a goal. But anyway, what I can do is share out the file. So if I save this for no real reason, I guess, I don't think it's great. But I can share out this file so that you can take a look at the shader yourself. That one's a lot more polished. It's also a lot slower. If we go to rendered view. Oh, wait, no, this one didn't have a render yet. It was Wolf Explorer. No, not that one. Open Wolf Explorer 3. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot more polished if you want to take a look at it. It's also a lot slower, especially on stream. But take a look at this one if you want. I'll share the file. I think it's actually making stuff go really slow. We will then, I will just close out of I can't do that. All right, so we'll wrap up the stream. I appreciate you guys lasting this long with some trivia. Do you watch your live streams after? I think it could be good to check what you could improve. I edit them, definitely, and I see a lot of the stream, but I don't watch all 2 hours every single week. I can only stomach listening to myself for so long, but yeah, I mean, I could probably dive into a few. Definitely seeing old streams, I see a lot that can be improved, and hopefully there's been improvement since then. But yeah, I should make it a habit of like watching one stream all the way through. Though, I mean, I have pretty good memory of what happened in each one, at least soon after. Anyway, all right, so that's a good suggestion, and I do like it. That does not look like the promo image. It definitely does not. I disappointed. Just did not keep the pace I needed to. Yeah, I'll share the wolf file and the cookie recipe. Cookie recipe. Yeah, I'll share those things out, and we'll go through this trivia. But also feel free to call out improvements, as you see them, because I'm not necessarily the best judge of like improvement. I feel like sometimes what I think is an improvement maybe isn't to people. So if you see improvements as you go, let me know. I appreciate that. All right, trivia question. So I told you that I kind of blanked out on what Blender oriented stuff I could ask. Because you have to come up with the questions and you have to research to make sure you know the right answers. And I just couldn't come up with anything this time that wasn't a repeat of previous information. So this is about me, silly, instructor questions. If you've watched my training, you should be able to answer them right. Yeah, we'll have fun with this one. Same rules, no Googling. You must submit each. When I count, I'm going to count 10 seconds after each question. Submit your answer. Try not to look at the chat and get your questions right, or get your questions confirmed by other people. Get your answers confirmed by other people. And anything else, you keep track of them. If you get all 5 correct, you win. Must be an honor system. This is all we've done this before. But yeah, I'm going to ask each question. Count 10 seconds. A, B, C, or D, and some of them have E and F. I think. Put your question in, and I'll get you some XP. 10 points per question, so you can get a max of 50 XP. Oh, was there some improvements? Oh, Yukino, you're very nice. I just like the way you're teaching us now. That makes me feel good. I definitely know there's improvements, but I appreciate that. Yeah, maybe I am kind of over. I need to get better at what is actually a 2-hour project. Yeah, I need to get better at judging that for sure. Thank you very much, Kent. Learn some fun stuff. Will you hate me if I get something wrong? No, not at all. Not at all. This is, again, kind of more self-deprecating than anything. All right, so let's go. First question. Should be easy. Am I a left-click or right-click selector? I'll count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I feel like that was a fast 10 seconds, but should be an easy one. Press A or B in the chat. And the delay is pretty significant, I feel like. Unless no one's guessing. Yeah, you guys knew it. Starting off easy. Oh, Miranda, thank you. Thank you. They're a highlight for me. I've been actually pretty stressed today, but I was like, I got the stream. I'm hanging out with my people. That's going to help me. And it has. It definitely has. So everyone got that, it looks like. Yeah, maybe chat was just laggy. Maybe it wasn't a delay, just super laggy. Yeah, so I think everyone got that one. So, A, good job. They do get a little harder, I think. All right, number 2. What is my first tutorial ever? All right, ever. I'm not going to clarify, but first one I ever made. Is it A, creating a realistic head? B, creature modeling for production? C, blend shape tutorial with ZBrush? Sculpting a torso? Which was my first one? I'll count to 10 in Spanish. I think I remember all of them. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis, siete, ocho, nueve, diez. Chat is stuck? That's not good. Sorry about the chat being stuck. It looks like it's working for some of you at least. A wild gamble. Double A, D, C, A. Okay, so this one is a little bit harder. Got a wild range. But yeah, if you guys knew this one, I'd be impressed. All right, looks like all the guesses are in. And the first one I ever did was on my personal YouTube channel. It's a blend shape tutorial with ZBrush. It's if you go look for my YouTube channel, it shouldn't be too hard to find, I don't think. Well, let's see. Let's prove that or not. Yeah, you can just type in my name and YouTube. And the video, where is it? Blend shape tutorial part 1. I honestly do not recommend you watch it. I don't know how good. I'm sure the info is outdated and not good. Also, my commentary is bizarre. So I do not recommend watching that. But that was the official first one I ever did. Did it in college. And later on, my first one for CG Cookie was creating a realistic head. That's why I didn't clarify. I didn't mean for CG Cookie, but just ever. So yes, someone got it. At least someone got it. But all right, number 3. What incorrect word did I use numerous times in early tutorials? And it might creep in modern tutorials if I'm not careful. Is it A, retopography instead of retopology? Is it B, vertice instead of vertex? C, Fresnel instead of Fresnel? Or is it D, composting instead of compositing? Thank you for coming, Laszlo. I feel like I've not seen your name before, so if you were new, welcome. But regardless, thanks for coming. Have a good night. Good day, good night. No, you must not watch it. I promise you, it's super cringeworthy. All right. Got some guesses. A lot of you are correct. Retopography. And I stopped counting. Maybe the counting doesn't matter. You guys kind of get the gist. And I feel like a goober when I just count to 10. Guessing B. All right, looks like that might be everybody. The answer is B, vertice. I don't know if it was like a year or what, but I kept saying vertice as the singular for vertex. And that's just not correct. And the grammar police came out of the woodwork to correct me. And I think I've trained myself pretty well to say vertex, but it might slip in occasionally. But definitely vertice. Number 4, which of these do I want to do more of in my videos? So all of them are things that I don't like, and one of them is what I want more of. A, increase frequency of the ums. Who doesn't love that? B, say, let's go ahead more often. C, sound like Jim Parsons. I've been told that. D, sound like Matthew McConaughey. I have been told that. E, memorize more Latin anatomy terms. That one's probably a sore one. I typed that out before I got on my soapbox, so I kind of feel bad about that one. I definitely think I attack the anatomy stuff. Something about anatomy bothers me, and I got to figure that out. It's not good. Were you not going for a beat instead of counting? Yeah, maybe like oh, that's right. I think David Frazier said that he would create a little soundtrack for the countdown, the 10-second countdown, because he does music. He actually was in a band that opened for, I think, Nickelback back in their heyday, like in the late 90s, early 2000s. He was in a band that opened for them. So that's pretty cool. Fun fact about David, fellow member. But yeah, I think he said he was going to create some sort of track for it. Haven't heard from him though. Yeah, this one's funny. This is a funny quiz. So yeah, all of these I don't love, except obviously I don't want to say I don't want to say, I say let's go ahead all the time. Do you hear that? I mean, anything I do, let's go ahead and turn on Eevee. Let's go ahead and add this node. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead. I say that all the time. Just weird, nervous, weird like habits, I guess, commentary habits. Also, I was told recently that I sound like the guy from Big Bang, like Sheldon from the Big Bang. And it's not really who I want to sound like. But I was told, someone told me, and I know it's not true, that I sound like Matthew McConaughey. And I always keep that in the back of my mind for a rainy day. Like someone out there thinks I sound like that sultry Texan voice. And that makes me feel better. But that's a silly question. I want examples of C&D. I don't have an impression of them, honestly. I've tried Matthew McConaughey, but I can't. It's like, it's unique. And Jim Parsons, it's just what I've been told from people. My normal accent sounds like those people, apparently. But I know it's not true for Matthew McConaughey. All right, last one. This one's kind of interesting, maybe. What's my favorite subject to teach? A, modeling. B, sculpting. C, texturing. D, material creation. E, lighting and rendering. F, compositing. Yeah, counting to 10, just waiting to 10. Who is Matthew McConaughey? Yukino. Matthew McConaughey is a well-known American actor in movies like Dallas Buyers Club. He was in Wolf of Wall Street. He was also in a lot of romantic comedies in like the late 90s, early 2000s. What is The Wedding Planner, I think. Anyway, he's a well-known actor. What else has he been in big? He just has a really unique accent that's very pleasing. Okay, so we've got a spread here. I don't see a single A. You guys don't think I like modeling? Aaron said, what did you say, Aaron? Don't hate me. Maybe B. All right, so actually, this question kind of, oh yeah, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, good one. He was in Contact. He's been in a ton of movies, such very good ones. He's a great actor. I like him a lot. All right. Interstellar, yes. Thank you for the assists. So my favorite subject to teach is actually material creation, D. Contrary to what you saw today when I ran out of time, kind of butchered it. Generally, that is my favorite. Modeling and sculpting, I feel like I've taught those so much that all I do is repeat myself with a different subject. So teaching it, I love to do modeling and sculpting, but teaching it, I feel kind of like blurry in my head about how to teach those well, because I feel like I've done it so much and I have repeated myself so many times that, I don't know, I almost need to take a break from those and like come back later, I feel like. But texturing, I only feel like I'm okay at texturing. I feel like I have maybe some bad habits with texturing. Anyway, I don't feel super confident about my texturing ability, so I usually try to fast track it with like baking maps and stuff like that. And it can do decent results, but like when I think of texturing, I think of really high quality hand painted textures, especially, and I don't do great with that stuff. So lighting and rendering, I do like a lot, but again, I feel like there's not that much to teach. Whereas material creation, in this case, there's always something new with materials. The node editor is a wild frontier full of stuff that can be done. I love the Shader Forge series. So since that's new and always a challenge, I find that to be my favorite. But awesome, yeah. So you guys are already doing it. What was the answer to number 4 from Splat? The answer number 4 is D as well. Sounds like Matthew McConaughey. I wish I, for one, sounded like him and wish I would do it more in my videos, but I know I don't sound like him. But one person told me I did on a tutorial a long time ago, and I always remembered it. So yeah, that's it. So say how many you got right in the chat, and I will add those. If you got 2 out of 5, I'll give you 20 XP points. I also do the ones from last week, which I forgot. And yeah, post that in the chat, and tell you what, give me the 50 XP and I'll put an apple on your desk next stream. Yeah, look at you trying to, I mean, you know, I like apples. I do like apples. I'll think about that one, Aaron. 4 out of 5. That's great, Yukino. Excellent. This is kind of a fun, silly quiz. Yeah, I don't know if I can do like meaningful quizzes every single time. It requires a little too much pre-thought and research. I feel like I thought it'd be easy to crank out trivia, but it's kind of difficult. One last question. Did you ever have any trick to improve Eevee shadows? I'm finding them to be very poor. You know, I don't actually. I will let you in on a little secret though. I have Ethan Snell working on an Eevee specific tutorial right now, and it looks really, really good from what it's shaping up to be. So he has distinct shadows showing up. The reason why I haven't used shadows too much is I usually have like a single object that I'm creating materials for, and I don't have an entire scene. I haven't done a lot of scene Eevee stuff where there's a broader scene where shadows would make much more sense. But this new course that's coming from him, I don't know when, but probably in the next couple months at least, he's going to teach all about Eevee and a specific project that he's working on. So he's going to cover that stuff. It's going to be really good. What date and time is the latest we can submit our work for the live? Oh, good question. If anyone does not know, next week we have live Blender critiques, February 26th, and ideally, I don't know if I put that in there. So if you look in the live stream, you can find the community thread where people are submitting their work. Let's see. I don't think. Oh yeah. Please provide context. Okay, please submit your project by February 24th. So that is Sunday, where the stream is going to be Tuesday. And the reason for that is on Monday, I will go in this thread, collect all of your work, also start, thinking about like, you know, starting to brainstorm, make notes about your work, like what kind of advice I can give. Lampel will do the same. So we need Monday to like prepare for what we're going to tell you. For what kind of feedback we're going to give. So if you can submit by February 24th, that will be ideal. I love the quizzes. They're fun to do. Awesome. I will try to always have one, but I will try to always have one. Awesome. Happy that the new courses are coming. That's excellent. Good deal. Well, thank you guys. I do apologize for the anatomy soapbox. There's something I got to figure out with my, like, why the anatomy thing triggers me, but I'll figure it out. And I do want to teach anatomy in a way that's true to myself, but also in a way that edifies, like, why anatomy is valuable, and even like terminology and stuff. So I'm going to keep thinking that, letting the wheels turn on that, but I think I came on way too strong about that earlier, so I apologize. But with that said, I'll finally let you go. We're like 25 minutes past. Thanks for sticking around and watching. Hope there was something that you learned. But You guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next week.